Mr. President, in the wake of Prime Minister Netanyahu's historic speech and prescient warning to Congress, expressing the unspeakable danger of allowing the world's most evil ideology to gain the world's most dangerous weapons, and in light of your administration's absence from the event, I feel compelled to express this open message to you. It has now been over a year since the indescribably evil terrorists of ISIS retook Fallujah and wiped out America's blood-bought gains in Iraq. As late as August of last year, you openly stated that you did not have a plan to defeat ISIS. Prior and since that time, countless innocent and helpless people have paid a horrifying and unnecessary price for your lack of clarity and resolve. As you very well know, my colleagues and I have repeatedly pleaded with you over the last year, in writing and in previous messages such as this one, to resolutely respond to this insidious, murderous, hellish evil. Yet, Mr. President, you have stood by casually but steadfastly and refused to even call global jihad by name. Whether it manifests itself as the Iranian mullahs, ISIS, Boko Haram, Hezbollah, Hamas, or a dozen other names, and you have refused to marshal the resources of your presidency to bear on behalf of its helpless victims. That, sir, is a disgrace that leaves me without words to describe. In June of 2014, ISIS had an estimated 4,000 fighters in Iraq. That number rose dramatically, according to the CIA, to 30,000 fighters in September. And now local organizations estimate that ISIS has between 80 and 200,000 fighters in Iraq and Syria. They are now marching throughout the Middle East and North Africa. They are raping, murdering, beheading, crucifying, and burning people alive, Mr. President. Christians, Yazidis, and other religious and ethnic minorities in many regions are facing genocide. And you, sir, have stood idly by and let it happen. Mr. President, there is nothing that I fear more for America than allowing ourselves or our leaders to grow numb to evil and the horrific and barbaric atrocities perpetrated against our fellow Americans or our fellow human beings in the world. Do you not realize that by ignoring this monstrous ideological evil, that you allow it to grow, and you ultimately invite it to exercise its desecration of the innocent within our own shores? Do you not understand what it means to America, Israel, and our children, and literally the peace and future of the entire human family, if such a sadistic ideology gains a nuclear weapons capability? Surely you have to know, Mr. President, that if either of these things happen, that the world and posterity will remember that it was you who possessed the capability to prevent that from happening, but you resolutely refused to do so. Instead of naming, confronting, and resolving to defeat this heartless cancer of global jihad, you have pandered to the deceiving mullahs of Iran and tried to undercut and defeat Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of our greatest ally against terrorism on this earth. Oh, Mr. President, would to God that you would be as kind and cooperative to our friends as you are to our enemies. Israel is our first strategic partner, and whether you are willing to stand with them or not, Congress and the American people do stand with Israel. It has been the long-standing and consistent policy of the United States, Israel, and UN resolutions to require Iran to dismantle their uranium enrichment and plutonium production capabilities. As Prime Minister Netanyahu stated with such clarity in his speech and on so many other occasions, uranium enrichment and plutonium production are the paramount issues. Yet in both your interim and proposed agreements with Iran, you undercut that policy and astonishingly provide Iran with a protected protocol to continue to enrich uranium. This places Iran on a predictable path to nuclear weapons. It profoundly endangers Israel, which in turn endangers America. It invites every rogue state in the world to follow Iran's example. It catalyzes nuclear proliferation across the Middle East, and it places no restrictions whatsoever on their development of intercontinental ballistic missiles, which will be aimed not at Israel, Mr. President, but at America. A policy such as this would consign my children and yours and all of their contemporaries to live their lives in the shadow of nuclear terrorism. Do you not remember that Iranian leaders have openly and repeatedly called for the destruction of Israel and America? Do you not remember that they are directly responsible for killing Americans for over 30 years and innocent citizens in Israel for even longer? And do you not remember that the Islamic Republic of Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism on this planet? Their intent and track record is so crystal clear to almost everyone, it seems, but to you, Mr. President. And the hallmark of your entire presidency has been that of weakening, disarming, diminishing, and apologizing for the United States of America. And now, because of your delusional negotiation and your acquiescence, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the #1 sponsor of terrorism in this world, has become a nation on the threshold of a nuclear weapons capability. Prime Minister Netanyahu did not come to America to effect a, quote, breach of protocol, as you suggest. He came to take part in what is a life and death debate over the survival of Israel and whether America, Israel's best friend and the world's sentinel of freedom, intends to stand down or not. Mr. President, 7 decades ago, another murderous ideology arose in the world. The dark shadow of the swastika fell first upon the Jewish people of Germany. And because the free world and its leaders did not immediately and resolutely respond to such a blatant evil, it began to spread across Europe until it lit the fires of Holocaust and World War II's hell on earth, and ultimately saw atomic bombs fall upon cities and over 50 million people dead worldwide. Winston Churchill understood what was at stake, Mr. President, and he tried to warn the world when he said, quote, "If you will not fight for the right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory will be sure and not too costly, you may come to the moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. There may be a worse moment. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is still better to perish than to live as slaves." Mr. President, we have all just heard another such warning from Benjamin Netanyahu. Whatever the challenges and costs of preventing a nuclear Iran are, they will pale in comparison to the cost of allowing global jihad to gain a nuclear weapons capability. And sir, I would plead with you on behalf of this and future generations to heed the words of Prime Ministers Benjamin Netanyahu and Winston Churchill. While there is still time,